Hi everybody. In this video, I'm going to explain how Strat ERP prepares its contract service providers for work. So let's get started. Okay, so you can see the slides that we're going to see or we're going to walk through in this presentation. The first thing that should jump at you is that this is the most slides that we've got or we've seen on any of these presentations. There's quite a few of them, so it might take a little bit longer. We have to move a little bit quickly. But we'll talk about all the different ways that we help prepare providers to be more successful, right? Again, this whole theme of trying to increase the stickiness so that contract service providers want to use Strat ERP to reach their next project, right? So we'll talk a little bit about corporate or professional training. We'll talk about the foundational training. So most people already know that, but sometimes it's really good to broaden their base, or if they're technical and want to move to functional, et cetera, then they want to have this exposure. We'll talk about application or end user or user training. We'll talk about configuration training for those same applications. And we'll talk about how to implement. This is really a little bit more around methodologies, but it also shows you tactically what is a RTM, what is a NTM, what is a security matrix. And so it's built to show you how or what the implementation process is like. You may already know it, but it also helps increase your knowledge. Structurally, it helps define things a little bit better. And then we have some Oracle Cloud Tools training. So a lot of our consultants predominantly functional, but having some tools, and you'll see which tools we focus on, is going to help broaden your knowledge and your marketability, right? Again, creating that stickiness and for creating better outcomes for Strat ERP clients. Then we have marketing and interviewing, so helping you market your profiles and social, helping you understand the interviewing process, potentially even giving you practice interviews. The next up may create a physical training plan for you, is to help understand how to pull that together. A lot of times if you're doing training, if there's nothing else, there's a little bit of a circle back and check in, but sometimes there's also coordinating, managing providers so that there's enough support and make sure that the training sticks. And so there's a process that we have to do that. Next up, we have a process we call apprentice, or we also call resource shadowing. And so this is where one of our resources would shadow a managing provider, probably the managing provider that brought them in. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about timeline. There's just a lot of training here, and it would lead somebody to believe, wow, this is a long, long time. And it really isn't. So we'll talk a little bit about what that timeline looks like. So let's go ahead and jump into the first slide. How does Strat ERP help providers learn to be a professional or a better professional? Well, we create videos constantly that share our knowledge across the firm, and then we have an internal SharePoint site where you can see and take those videos or watch them if you want to improve those skills. Next up, how does Strat ERP help contract service providers learn the basics of Oracle Cloud? Well, we partner with a third-party portal, online marketplace called Panomere, and Panomere helps our providers learn Oracle Cloud via a learning path there are several learning paths that they call foundations. It's kind of the 101, if you will, or the basics of Oracle Cloud. So that's able to be watched for free. And that's actually not just a Strat ERP thing. Anybody can watch that on Panomere. Same with this end user training. So we help our contract service providers understand what end user training is available through Panomere, how to access that. But this is, again, really largely, it's available to anyone. Now, what's also good is the managing providers and the directing providers take those same courses so they understand and can help the application service providers or even the technology service providers looking to increase their knowledge. They know what they're taking. So it's just the tool that we all use. Next up, now, this is something where the general public does not have access to configuration training through, again, Panomere. And so Strat ERP works with Panomere to unlock this training for our contract service providers, again, to improve their skills, which will improve outcomes for clients and also create stickiness with the contract service providers that we need to send to clients. That's how we make our income. So our providers, our contract service providers, learn to configure applications based on courses. As you can see here, these are some of them with, I think, in procurement, that our contract service providers can access once they've started to work with us and they have a contract or SOW. Next up, how does Strat ERP help providers learn to implement Oracle Cloud. So there's methodologies, agile, and there's a whole host of documents or processes. And so you can see that we have specific courses on how to implement. They'll talk about RTMs or requirement traceability matrix. They'll talk about what's a CRP. They'll talk about security matrix. They'll talk about all these tools or processes within an implementation. And so again, the ability to become more knowledgeable. Slide 6, Oracle Cloud Tools Training. So I talked about that a minute ago. There's two large areas where you'll see this. The first is what you see here, OTBI, which is a query by example tool. And so good consultants are putting software in. They have to know how to get some of that data out to show their customers. And yes, there's pages where you can see it, but if you just don't want a mass reading of invoices, let's say, or purchase orders, you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, then you need a query by example to do that. We also focus on approval. We want to know, we want our clients to, or we want our our contract service providers to be as knowledgeable, as well-rounded as possible. So this is one of the other ways that we do that. Slide 7, we want to improve your ability to market and interview. And so there's a whole host, again, the implementation, the configuration, this marketing and interviewing, these are all courses not available to the general public. They're available in a deal that we have with Panamere, because we work with them exclusively from a portal standpoint. And this lets our contract service providers learn to market themselves via courses on Panamere.com. Next up, training plans. So we've talked a little bit about this in a couple different places. And so our contract service providers, we create training plans that are really spanning both our internal SharePoint training as well as Panamere training to holistically make sure that our providers are growing and becoming better contract service providers. And then lastly, or I don't think lastly, I have one more after this, but resource shadowing. So this is important. Sometimes you also, we call this apprentice. And so if you're a newer provider and you want to see one of the other contract service providers, or more importantly, your managing provider, we perform or offer a service called resource shadowing to help you build that, that skill set. Now, so wow, that's a lot of different training that I went through. What does that all look like when you sketch it out on a timeline? And so the onboarding training is more of the Strat ERP training. This is about a half a day. Then you start to look on this prep phase we're talking about here. And so half of it's in foundations, maybe 9 days or so that are in application training. And that really depends on what you're learning. But now you're 10 days in. Then you have 3 more days to learn to configure. You have 1 more day to learn this implementers training, like we talked about. And then 3 days to learn the different tools of OTBI or approval workflow. And then in that last part, you've also got some shadowing occurring. And then finally, when you're in getting staffed, you know, that's when we start to work through the brand building, the resume writing, how to craft your Panamere profile, how to craft your LinkedIn profile. And then we do some role play or offer some role play if you want to improve your interviewing skills, right? And then during that time, if there is existing work that we might have someone else needing help from, we may also be able to pipeline you into that managing provider, and you can help them execute some work to get some money and to build your apprenticing skills, if you will. Okay, so that's how we prepare our resources, or how we prepare our contract service providers. Hopefully you found this interesting, and thank you very much for watching.